Welcome back to Our Community, visiting with Beth Clark Thomas and Shonda Koblentz, both from Masters for Kids. We haven't said where this is taking place, and we did say when. June 6th is when it begins. And where will you be?
We'll be at Malone University.
Any particular place at Malone University or spread out across the campus?
It's going to be housed in Mitchell Hall, which is our education building.
But it's summer camp, so except for the guided reading intensive instruction, if it's a beautiful day, they're outside.
Oh, nice. And that is a pretty place. All right, you must have a deadline for registration. Is that coming up?
May 1st is our deadline so that we have that time to follow up on all the specific teacher referrals and get any additional information we need from teachers before school's out to make the best matches for the children.
Like anything, the people who most take advantage of things like this seem to be the people who least need it. And so I'm wondering, what is the cost involved, and is there a way to make this available to underserved kids?
Mm-hmm. We very much want to serve the breadth of our community who have students who need the intervention, regardless of the socioeconomic status of the family. However, in putting it together, there are real costs incurred. So we gave a lot of thought and prayer into how to discern what would be a fair cost, and that included such things as considering how much daycare costs for a week and comparing that to targeted intervention by certified teachers.
Right.
And we also looked at, frankly, Shonda, what do you pay for a babysitter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so the overall tuition for 75 hours of instruction is $400, which makes one choke when you hear it, unless you consider that's $5.30 an hour, less than I pay a babysitter.
That is less than you pay a babysitter, and you're getting all this instruction, and you're getting food, right?
But the children will be packing because of allergies and our considerations of that. The children will have a sack lunch to go. That's not to say once we get all their health forms and realize what allergies we do and don't have, we will have lovely little incentive treats on hot summer days. Just saying, it is camp.
It is camp. Yeah. And what makes it feel like camp still? I mean, rather than summer school.
How much time do we have?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think the fact that we're going to be trying to have it outside as much as possible, like Beth mentioned, if it rather than sitting down and doing a worksheet and practicing vocabulary and spelling, we can be outside, we can be acting things out, we can be, using sidewalk chalk and making a mural and labeling things and using, key vocabulary words and, going on nature hikes and having to be able to read the directions and just really using all of our skills and not just learning to read, but reading to learn and just really having fun in a all-encompassing kind of manner rather than just sitting in a desk. They did that for 9 months. They're ready for summer.
And I love that. And that is that tipping point, isn't it, where you stopped learning to read and you start reading to learn. And that's why we all continue to do it every day. 75 hours, $400 for that entire time. You said $5 and something an hour?
It's $5.30 an hour.
Yeah.
$5.30 an hour. I'll bet there's somebody hearing this saying, well, I would donate that and make sure that a child gets to go to camp. Let's do a shout out. Let's do an appeal right now and get more kids there.
I'll be honest, we've had as many calls for registrations as we have for people saying, is there any scholarship money available? So there are families who do want their children to attend who just fiscally can't do it at this time. And so I would seriously challenge and encourage folks like book clubs, any individual members of community agencies like Stark Community Foundation or Canton's Women's Club, even the Junior League or Rotarians, our churches, our Kiwanis, anyone. Think about, could you make a difference in the life of a child with an undesignated scholarship donation to our camp? We will make sure that a deserving child, of whom there are plenty, receives that intervention that they deserve thanks to someone's generous donation.
And this would be a tax-deductible donation. How would a person make this? How would they do that?
Right now, if you go to the Malone website, anyone can just type in the search box at the top, Masters for Kids, and that's a number 4. if they type in Masters for Kids, they'll be directed to the landing page for our camp. And there are 3 links. One's a registration, which a donor wouldn't be registering a camper. One is a teacher referral. You wouldn't be filling that one out. The third one is the payment option. And when they get on that payment option, they would type in their personal, like their name and address. But there's a box they'll check that says, check here for an undesignated scholarship. And that information gets channeled directly to our advancement office and us simultaneously so that we can make sure their donation is acknowledged and we can make sure a camper gets to camp.
And a donation could be in any amount, I'm guessing, that once $400 is accumulated, then that's a child. So
Yes,
maybe
ma'am.
you want to give $25 or $100, but that would all go towards sending a child to camp.
Yes, ma'am.
And what a difference they're making in their lives. All right, well, let's spend some time talking about that, because both of you certainly have a heart for this. Shonda, I'm going to start with you. Certainly you've got a first and a second grader at home, so you kind of see how important it is.
Yes.
But for you personally, how fulfilling is this to get to work on these kinds of things every day?
It's extremely fulfilling. Not only do I get to do it at my job, I get to do it at home. So I have the best of both worlds. I'm living early childhood right now, and I love it. Just seeing in my own children the worlds that are opening before their eyes, and the conversations that we can have because they're learning to read and they're just exposed to new things, and just knowing that their opportunities in life are going to be so much greater because they can read. And to think that we can provide that same opportunity for children in this community who maybe don't have a mom at home with an education background to work on those things with the children. And for even those who do have, highly educated parents, there's a difference between having just a general education background, a college degree, and having a reading specialist background. And that's what we're going to be providing for these children. Having people, this is what they do, this is their passion, and that's what makes them want to wake up every morning, is to go to work and help someone learn how to read.
When it's not summer, you're working with young people who you are sending into the classroom. Tell me about that experience, because I can tell you also love working with the little people themselves, don't you?
I do, yes. I do very much enjoy that. I love working with the college students. I love getting out into the field and volunteering and observing our students in action. And it's so energizing. And knowing that we as teachers, we have so much power and knowledge that we're able to give to these children. It's very, very rewarding.
Will some of the college students get an opportunity to observe what's happening here in the summer?
They'll certainly have the opportunity, but we've intentionally hired several of them to help with the camp counselor piece.
Nice.
Some of our first-year graduates.
Oh, first-year graduates.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Now go ahead and brag a little bit, because so many of your students know before graduation what school they will be teaching at in the fall. It's kind of amazing.
It's
Are you
exciting.
starting to get some of those reports?
Actually, yes, we just had a job fair up in Akron a week ago where a good number of students were tapped. There are a couple local, and the good news is we're actually doing a workshop tomorrow evening called Beyond the Buckeye Borders to see how these young candidates are thinking, if not here, where might God call them to
Yes.
teach? And we're looking at the numbers of kids who've already gotten jobs from May and December, both in and outside of our state. This is this past May and this past December. And we're really stunned at how few are not working. And some of them are just December grads who are long-term subbing.
Right,
So
right.
it's just
Which is also
exciting.
working.
It's
Yes.
exciting.
It is amazing. All right, I'm going to throw the same question to you, because I know you also love working with the little people, but you felt called to work with big people to teach them how to work with little people. It really does it's that pebble going into the water and just
is.
expanding, isn't it? Just touch on that a little.
It is. It really is something I stepped into for 1 year. But because of the tremendous support at Malone and the flexibility they provide in allowing, as Shonda said, not just teaching at Malone, but being out in the schools regularly and encouraging us to do service in the schools, I've stayed in touch enough that my heart has been fed. But I did step out for an entire semester just a year ago and was sent back to Malone because there's lots of work to be done here in Northeast Ohio to prepare teacher candidates to work with the kingdom. It's much more diverse than they know.
Yes.
And nobody knows where God's going to call them to teach.
You never really do know where you're going to get called.
No.
He gives us a peek at a time. Talk about your sabbatical a little bit. You really did something interesting.
I taught.
Yeah. You went
The
back
little
to
people.
the little people of what socioeconomic
Well,
group?
actually, it's the very thing that we really need to help young people who aspire to be teachers to see and understand at a real level how culturally and linguistically diverse the student population that they are going to be called to teach is as compared to the schools they attended. And I was just outside of D.C., and the school population in this elementary school was highly, highly impoverished, but even more so than the socioeconomic status was that it was over 70% English as a second language, and they spoke 12 different languages.
Wow.
So that kind of diversity and trying to meet this third grade guarantee and help kids read and be literate is exceedingly challenging.
I can't think of a classroom that you walk in, a first or second grade classroom, where there's a child sitting there who doesn't want to learn. But something happens along the way. You get to middle school, and there are more behavioral problems, most likely because they're not keeping up with everybody else, and so that acts out in another way. What happens, and what can we do?
Hormones you can't control.
Well,
so what
true.
can you? But it's interesting though. For Shonda and I both, I think we would point back to the literacy as the foundation, because in middle school you have some incredibly awesome teachers who are passionate about their discipline, their content, and the way they were taught was in a different time with regard to the importance of literacy. I mean, reading was the reading teacher's problem. You do science. And what we now know, have actually for a while, but we know now is it's really all about, are you literate enough to comprehend that discipline? They want to be passionate, but when you're in an 8th grade social studies class and you read at a 2nd grade level, that's going to be a hard sell.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking of the adult literacy program, same kinds of things, that they learned a certain way. They learned by the word pictures, that sight and say, rather than learning how to sound something out. And now we know you've got to do both of those things to be able to click in the mind. Well, I could talk to you forever, but let's just say this one more time. May 1st is that deadline to make the reservation. Go to malone.edu and do a search on Masters for Kids. That's a numeral 4. Starts June 6th, and what a wonderful program. Beth Clark Thomas, Shonda Koblenz, thank you so much for joining us on Our Community.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.